following is a retelling of what occurred in Gamma Haven Beta's most recent event phase. Episode 3. Weopnized. Haven City. An ugly city. Scene 1. North Haven, Bloodvein headquarters. A funeral is unfolding on the property of Bloodvein, an inner-city dynasty that flourishes in the blood and fear of down below, and dervishes in glory and illusion up above. Today they lay to rest their fallen leader, murdered on his own throne, Master Chang Wang. His son, and now Emperor of Bloodvein at the age of 10, Bai Wang stands over his father's closed casket, with the face of anger and sorrow. With his entourage of 5 masked young men, and an older man adorned in bronze samurai armor, Bai Wang turns and starts to head in the direction of his home, and they follow. The scene cuts to Bai Wang's headquarters. They rest at a large, elegant table meant for congregation, and he's accompanied by the bronze samurai. Resting on the table in front of Bai is the silenced ooze pistol used to kill his father. The samurai begins to counsel, more so plead with Bai Wang, into making a wiser decision with the direction Bloodvein operates moving forward. He explains that if you pool our resources and sever our bonds with the drug trade, we will never gain this footing and control again. Bai Wang rebuttals it with calm anger. He speaks of revenge, strength, and more power. He rises from his seat, and he explains to the samurai that Bloodvein is in his hands, and in his hands he will wield how he sees fit. He then commands the samurai to sever Bloodvein from the drug trade, for Bloodvein is already wealthy beyond belief. Bai Wang says he wants their funding to be poured directly into their army, research on life sciences, and weaponry. He then states that the samurai's priority order under his rule is to eradicate the ooze weapon dealer, bring him his head and his father's head. Send the Nephilim Solaris with their 3rd best pilot for added firepower, and continue with the plan to attend the auction. In order to make an example, we will destroy the dealer's men in front of the other purchasers, and kill the purchasers if they do not join our ranks. The samurai nods and departs. This scene was sorrowful black, continual bronze, and raging red. It represents black clothing, bronze accessories, and an emperor's pulsating anger. Scene 2. North Haven. Empty parking garage. An armored vehicle flies into and up on the 2nd floor of a parking garage to rendezvous with the larger armored military land vehicle. Standing outside the land vehicle is a suited and booted older gentleman waiting by it. The door to the car swings open and out pops an anxious and twitchy gentleman. Porter Vanlith, renowned scientist and son of Delilah Vanlith, the legendary bioengineer. Traces of luxury mist evaporates from under his nose as he hastily makes his way to the older man, eccentrically sliding his shoes across the floor, barely bending his feet. He begins to question the man. "Damn it! I told you to have them here an hour ago." "Calm down. They're in the truck with the shipment." Porter wipes spit from his mouth and walks up to the vehicle and tries to open the door. He can't. The old man hits a button on the remote and the door slides open. Porter Vanlith peers inside the large vehicle and spots a man shrouded in a long hooded jacket, clad in their typical stranger's attire, and beside him lay a sheathed blade. He looked laxed and meditative form, and the black cords of headphones can be seen winding up into his hood. Further down, deeper into the vehicle, sits another individual, a curvy, caramel-complected woman sitting upward by a fold-out table blanketed in pistols, rifles, grenades, and the other various guns and explosives of the terrifying type. Long, wavy, black hair adorned by her black Wayfarer shades resting within. Door knocker earrings danced upon her tan and white scarf adorning her neck. bulletproof hoodie, fingerless gloves, ripped jeans, and some motherfucking tin boots. The rebel's rebel. She looked up at Porter, then back down to the rifle she's assembling. And onyx pendants can be seen dangling from her chest. Porter looks at her, then the other guy, then her. The older man steps onto the vehicle and introduces both R-Type X and Modded Z. Porter looks at the older man disappointedly and asks, "Where's asshole Y?" He reminds the older man that he requested no more than 3, and that these are only 2. He then asks the man to count 3 on his own fingers. The old man interrupts Porter's belittling comments and tells him to relax. He informs Porter of Merritt Z's reputation, and how with her, he has a small army between the 2 of them. The less people that know about this auction, the better. Porter looks at R-Type, then looks longingly at Merritt Z. The camera cuts to the large vehicle leaving the parking garage and headed towards the outer city. This scene was shadow black, electric pink, and neon green. The black represents the silhouettes of the hired help laying over the pink dim-lit interior lights of the military vehicle, in the contrast of the rebels' neon green lipstick. Scene 3. North Haven. Haven 999 Studios. A live studio audience applauds and cheers as a tall and dapper lanky man strides out onto the talk show set and begins to deliver a legendary opening, poking fun at all of Haven's trending news and walking a tightrope over a PR disaster as he jokes about the events and masterfully delivers them. You know, if my special guest was 7 days sooner, he may have saved our families from a radiated mutant rain with those umbrellas. But he didn't exist yet. Ladies and gentlemen, welcoming the man God gave us in exchange for the lives of your families, Haven's real hero and street magician, Tempest. Tempest walks out onto the set, his feathered white hair, all-white fedora, business suit, and cape appearing to glow anointedly under the bright studio lights. With great showmanship, he makes his way toward the host, incorporating impressive feats and allusions while shaking the hand of the host. The crowd goes insane as waves of excitement submerge the set only a sensation and empath like Tempest could appreciate. They begin to discuss a hot-button topic, mutant rights. See, long before the event, fiction always simulated how civilians would react to incubants of special powers, and in turn, this swayed mankind into accepting those affected by the Gamma event. Most could agree the obvious good that could come from great gifts in the right hands. However, there was more science involved. 1 out of every 6 people exposed to the radiation died horribly after mutating into abominations, causing slow deaths. Scientists believe mutants are walking time bombs that could emit gamma radiation at any moment, triggering lethal mutation in surrounding life. Although not a scholar of the sciences, Tempest explains his perspective as to why it's wrong to round up those infected like some sort of holocaust. He explains it in a way that gains the full-on support of the crowd. The host rebuttals and responds with sarcasm. Tempest cuts the host off with a sharp and witty counter-argument. Tempest and the host realize the crowd is entirely in favor of Tempest at the moment, and he takes control of the narrative of the debate and wins the crowd over, all while capitalizing on all opportunities to plug his new show. The host loses the debate and shifts the conversation to Tempest's new primetime television show on Haven BO. For the most part, Templey remains tight-lipped on the matter, but does offer extremely interesting details of the show's premise, which gets the topic buzzing. A woman in the audience even faints from the excitement. Holy shit. Security runs over to tend to the lady, but while that's happening, a gunshot rings and everybody begins to scramble. A makeshift bomb is tossed up on the set as someone shouts, "Death to all muties!" The Camera cuts to the bomb sliding across the set's rug toward Tempest's chair in slow motion. Oh, Lord. The scene was blue, green, and hateful red. The blue represents the ocean of the crowd and the crashing waves of genuine acceptance only Tempest could feel. The green represents the positive impression of mutants burning into the hearts of viewers. And the hateful red represents an obvious presence in the center of the audience. Scene 4. South Haven. Secret briefing room. You see a man of average height, muscular, wearing light militant attire. An ex-Marine named Goldbrand stands at the foot of a table pointing at a briefing board. He looks seasoned, with chiseled features and a head of graying white hair slicked back. Graying white hair. The room is dimly lit as he begins briefing those in attendance at the table. I assembled you all here because this operation must succeed. A few peers of mine and I have been investigating the distribution of deadly and exotic weapons through Haven. The Gamma disaster in conjunction with this surge of banned weaponry spells doom for this city, and we intend to mitigate it. I gained a new intel from a source that says Bloodvein will be present at the auction, and we have the exact location of where the dealer and the shipment will be arriving. Our goal is to neutralize and capture every person present at the site before the dealer and the shipment arrives. We expect resistance, so kill if necessary. The camera turns away from Goldbrand and slowly to the agents he's assembled. Standing, arms folded, you see Omega Supreme. To his right, Ajin Ra. And the third agent, Anarchy 12. Ajin Ra steps forward and places his hand on the table. He informs the party of the estimated amount of attendees that will be present, as well as the name of the other groups. He speaks of their power, reinforcements, and weaknesses. A group of special twins that cannot be harmed by normal means, it seems. And really old rich people. Goldbrand looks to Omega Supreme and says Omega Supreme will be a major ally in restoring order back to Haven. He has kindly offered his assistance to us for this operation. Anarchy 12 interrupts and stands. Anarchy speaks of countermeasures using stealth and technological advantages. Goldbrand slides a box onto the table. I needed not only someone we could trust, but someone with a background in underground tech and intel. Anarchy pulls the box over and opens the box, revealing 3 gold bands. Anarchy explains of a device that will be used to intercept all communications and how they are often deployed at sites of secret and private meetings. He explains that these bands will render us protected from such sabotage. Goldbrand then steps in and says, communication is key. There is a person of interest that will be out there, a scientist that is working with the dealer. Ajin Ra steps forward and begins to inform the party how this particular scientist holds top-level information that potentially connects the ooze dealer to the Gamma event. Ajin Ra makes it his responsibility to search and capture the target, and also agrees that communication would be key. Goldbrand steps forward again and begins discussing plans, and the rest of the group joins in. This scene was shadow black, high alert yellow, and smelled like cigar smoke. Scene 5. Haven 999 Studios. The camera descends from above the studio down to the entrance as police, SWAT teams, and fire trucks flood the scene. A bomb squad is seen rushing through the crowd of people until they reach Tempest, standing over a solid ball of erupting flame, frozen in time and contained in a temporal field. Guided by Tempest, the bomb squad picks up the temporal field harboring the bomb, frozen mid-explosion, and places it in a large chamber. Tempest then escorts them through the crowd to the outside. Suddenly, midway, a hooded man steps out in front of their path. the man reaches into his jacket and pulls out his shoe. In his confusion, he steps backward on bare socks and steps on his gun, sending him twirling to the ground. He scoots backward while Tempest walks slowly up to him. Tempest knew this was the man who threw the bomb, from the hateful red stirring from within the crowd like an active volcano, and so he expected his second attempt on his life. The assailant reaches into his other sock and pulls out a knife, but it isn't a knife. It's his ID, facing outward. The camera cuts to two officers carrying the man as he lay stiff and suspended in time within a temporal field, missing one shoe and holding up his ID for easy booking. They toss his ass in the backseat of a police vehicle. The TV ratings for the night show broke records and sparked a buzz that has ignited a violent debate and reveals a fissure in society. The support of mutants is staggering, but the call for their quarantine and/or destruction is disturbingly substantial. Gordon Gale has become the symbol of mutant rights. Scene 6. North Haven. Secret uncharted backroads. The camera cuts to a group of armed thugs wearing all red. They are congregating in a nearby alleyway by the street. Amongst themselves, they speak of incoming weapon shipments, ambushing, hijacking, and looting. A heavy and rough-looking 7-foot woman comes lumbering down the alleyway to meet them. Street Mother, the leader of the small-time faction who have been major opportunists, landing them few but impactful victories, allowing them to prosper in Haven for the most part. Street Mother is to credit for that. Street Mother has been affected by the Gamma event and has recently learned how to harness this power. With a thick foreign accent, she promises her crew that with her newfound power, nothing can come between them and glory now. Suddenly, one of the thugs whispers, "Someone's coming." The leader tells him to park a car in the middle of the street to slow him down and flag down the arriving vehicle when it's in view. He does just that. He gets out of the car, preparing to put on his act of being distressed. The camera cuts to the wheels of a bike cruising down the middle of the street, quickly approaching the thug's roadblock. The thug tells the gang to stand down, it's just a kid on a bike. The camera cuts into two frames showing green hands squeezing the handlebars tightly as the biker begins pedaling vigorously. The thug squints his eyes at the oncoming biker like, shit, he's flying on that thing, and he begins to yell and wave his gun to try to scare the biker away. But the biker doesn't comply, is not scared, and continues cruising down the middle of the road directly towards him in his one-car blockade. One of the thugs yells, telling him to just let the biker pass, it's not a big deal. But Street Mother thinks otherwise. She straightens the collar on her dirty red leather jacket and states that it could be a scout. Shoot him off of the bike. She then walks over to the street, exiting the alleyway to support. But just as she reaches the street, the biker crashes into the thug and his car like an armored military land vehicle traveling at 90 miles per hour, obliterating them both. The hooded biker, still standing upright on his bike, turns his head slowly at the Street Mother and her people behind her in the alleyway. His face is green, with glowing eyes as they peer through his hood with subtle excitement from the rush. Drenched in blood from the flattening thug pressed into the crevices of the wrecked car, the biker's hoodie begins to warp and move a bit. Street Mother hesitating in confusion. Suddenly, Marid Z emerges from the blackness of the biker's hoodie, with just her upper body wielding a mammothly large Helio Executioner multi-shot bombarder, a custom-crafted multi-grenade launcher, her eyes peering through the hollow targeter, face covered with her scarf, and a can of spray paint dangling from her belt. She launches 6 grenades all at once in a direction. 4 land all around those in the alleyway, and 2 hit Street Mother directly in the face just before all 6 explode, demolishing buildings and leaving body parts, guts, and rubble in her wake. Mara Z waits for the smoke and dust to settle so she can survey the results of her weapon. And when she's satisfied and likes what she sees, she pats the biker on the shoulder, signaling him to keep driving as she dips and warps back into the void of his hoodie. He begins pedaling and pushing through the wreckage as his bike begins to roar like a large military land vehicle before reverting into the sound of a bicycle again. The camera cuts to the inside of the vehicle. We see Marid Z disassembling the Helio Executioner and R-Type X meditating. Porter scoots down over to Marid Z and attempts to share his knowledge of weapon design. Marid Z and Porter speak of ballistics, design, lethality, and inefficiencies in firearms developments. Van Lith appears obsessed with gamma phenomenon and briefly shares his ideas of the potential of weaponizing these mutations, but he catches himself and changes the subject and starts going on about weapon ideas. Marid Z learns Van Lith's secrets of advanced weapon engineering. Marid Z also learns that Porter is passionate, ultra-intelligent, and has no moral compass, and is consumed by science. R-Type X pulls his headphones out and tucks them into his hood and leaps to his feet. Porter and Marid Z look over to him. R-Type X opens the hatch above from within the behemoth of a vehicle and leaps up and onto the top of it as it cruises down the street doing 90, crashing through abandoned vehicles and mountains of trash and makeshift criminal outposts. The camera pans around R-Type X as dozens of blood-veined ninjas can be seen running along the rooftops of the surrounding buildings, keeping pace with them and the shipment. All 12 weapon-wielding ninjas leap off of the buildings and begin to engage R-Type X. 3 ninjas slash from all angles with razor-sharp katanas. Ryo Sengoku evades while stepping into a gut punch at exceptional speed, shattering his target's spine. From there he begins to beat down oncoming waves of highly trained and veteran blood-veined ninjas who were renowned for their skill in killing with swift precision. However, Ryo Sengoku, the Wanderer, is unlike anything they've ever faced. He appears cool and collected as he sends 3 lightning kicks towards his current target. The first kick crushes the ninja's brow and causing bone to splinter into its eyeball. The second kick rips into the jaw, unhinging it and hurling it. The second kick rips into the jaw, unhinging it and hurling each and every tooth toward the other side of his mouth. The final kick hits the neck with even more momentum, severing the neck from the spine. R-Type continues destroying his assailants as he balances delivering brutal strikes with submissions. A ninja thrusts his katanas toward R-Type, who sidesteps it, grabs the ninja's arm, and bends it 6 ways till Sunday, bringing the ninja to his knees. R-Type nudges him off of the high-speed moving vehicle with a soft kick, sending him into an oncoming light pole. The camera cuts to inside the vehicle. Porter is looking through the camera as Marid Z prepares to climb up and assist Ryo Sengoku. Porter yells in disbelief. He can't believe Bloodvein is attacking his shipment when they're supposed to be the buyers at the auction he's headed to. In an anxious rage, he accuses them of being crooks. Porter takes his eyes off of the camera lens and turns in time to witness Makeda Kershaw, one of Bloodvein's renowned captains, phasing through the wall like some sort of demonic phantom. He's lunging directly toward Marid Z as she begins to climb the ladder up the hatch. As Makeda Kershaw rematerializes, he plunges his 2 armor-piercing scythes into her back, lifts her off of the ladder, then slams her onto the ground as blood sprays across the floor, painting the walls. Porter yells out for Marid. Makeda Kershaw pulls off his blood-veined mask, revealing a blue, reptilian face with middle-aged Japanese features. Makeda Kershaw is not of the Bloodvein Empire, but his bloodline and clan served their dynasty. Makeda stands over Marid-Z as she tries to turn herself onto her back. He calls her by her name and explains how it's an honor to kill such a large political figure and someone so well respected in Haven. He kneels down to her face and lectures her on crossing the Bloodvein dynasty and how meddling with trader merchants is low for her. He then asks Marid-Z to watch as he eviscerates Porter, Vanlith. As soon as Porter hears that, he flees towards one end of the vehicle while shouting for help from the driver and the old man up front, but they do not hear them. Makeda Kersha pulls his mask back down and says to Marid-Z that he'll be back to give her a goodbye kiss, but he has work to do and a head to collect. He begins to walk toward Porter. Marid-Z attempts to crawl towards her dropped guns, but has lost a lot of blood and loses more than when she moves. Porter grabs one of Marid's smallest guns and aims it at Makeda, threatening to shoot him if he moves or does any weird mutant stuff. Makeda laughs and hisses. He explains to Porter that it isn't his fault he became mutated, but it has been a blessing for his occupation. Porter fires the gun, aiming for center mass of Makeda. A loud blast of gunfire rips loose, sending Porter into the wall, breaking his arm and ribs. Makeda phases into the blue incorporeal form as the projectile passes through him. Makeda walks toward the camera from the first-person view of Porter as Makeda starts twirling his size. The camera cuts to R-Type X, finishing off the ninjas on top of the vehicle. Suddenly, 3 rockets come flying over the city's buildings and causes destruction in the vehicle's travel path. The turbulence causes R-Type to stumble a bit, as well as send a few incapacitated and dead ninjas flying off of the high-speeding vehicle. A massive bronze flying mechacopter emerges, the Nephilim Solaris. Since Master Wong's demise, his son and successor has steered Bloodvein into the direction of power and has since made large leaps by acquiring such weapons as this. It is larger than the military vehicle they're on and armed to the teeth with weaponry. It begins to charge up an unknown weapon, and 6 ninjas prepare to leap off of its carrier and engage R-Type X. Real Sengoku begins to charge his hand up with massive bright energy. The 6 soldiers see this and leap off. Brrrr! 2 rows of bullets rip across the sky, splitting all of the ninjas into 2. Marid-Z arrives at the side of R-Type X wielding 2 crowd control burner cannons, only 6 exist, on each arm as she provides cover fire, peppering the mechacopter cockpit with armor-piercing rounds. Marid-Z informs R-Type X of the situation happening inside of the military vehicle. She explains how she has it under control, but insists he makes quick work of the Nephilim Solaris so they can tend to their client in immediate danger. R-Type releases a volley of energy balls into the sky. Majority of them miss as they scatter into the sky, cluttering the aerospace by design. Marid-Z's bullets are super effective, and R-Type's energy projectiles cause the pilot to stray away from its advantageous positioning. When suddenly, R-Type X waves his left hand, sending a wave of force hurling toward the Nephilim Solaris, causing it to lose control. R-Type X then extends his right hand, forms his hand like a gun, aims and fires a sharp beam of energy that pierces through the Nephilim's rudder. Its tail end explodes and spins into a cluster of energy balls R-Type X created placed in the sky. R-Type turns and looks at Marid-Z. She's opening the hatch and beckons R-Type X to enter. The camera cuts to Makeda, ripping the head off of Porter and placing it on his thigh. Makeda then walks over to the gravely wounded Marid-Z. Marid-Z admits defeat and begins to express her interest and the kiss Makeda had mentioned. She begins to flirt in a seducing manner as best as she can while in pain. Makeda moves in for that long kiss. Modded Z and R-Type X descend from the ladder to see a muscular green-skinned young man looking to be in his late teens with short hair. The waves in his hair make you seasick when you look at him. He stands, eyes glowing, with his arms folded, awaiting Modded Z's next instructions. Below him, by his feet, is Makeda Kersha on his knees making out with the air, oblivious to his surroundings and caught up in the warped reality created by the Jinn, Modded Z's Jinn. Porter is across the vehicle staring at the Jinn in fear. Modded Z walks over to her chest and pulls out a 1891 Mosin Magat rifle and walks back over to Makeda, kissing the air. She aims and blows his head off, sending brain matter all over the floor. His body goes incorporeal as his corpse phases through the vehicle's floor. The green Jinn swoops into Modded Z's pendant. With him gone, Porter stands up and informs R-Type X and Modded that they should be arriving to the auction site soon, but to be on high alert, as one of the two buyers were the Bloodvein dynasty who had just attacked them. R-Type X puts his earbuds back in his ear and walks and sits down. Modded Z walks away and begins tending to her Mosin. Porter Van Lith receives a text message from his partners, already at the auction location. He reads it and squints in confusion. Porter dials the intercom to reach the front portion of the car to inform the driver of the sudden change in location. Scene 7. Secret back roads. A group of 3 massive Bloodvein jeeps come barreling down the back roads headed to a secret private auction with a new player in the black market weapons trade. The camera cuts to a Bloodvein agent driving, and next to him, the bronze samurai we saw speaking with Emperor Bai Wang earlier. His eyes are closed, his sword on his lap, his helmet resting on the floor beside him. He begins to speak of plans, countermeasures, and escape routes. He explains he will kill the auctioneers, and that he needs the driver and the rest of his men to keep the other purchasing party at bay. The driver nods in agreement, then pulls out a Hyperion 8, a rare and exotic prototype tool used by lunar architects for reducing and compacting matter. Never used before for malice until just now, fashioned to a small gun the size of a teacup. Ryan Zaidi, a contract assassin, recruited by Goldbrand long before today, points the Hyperion 8 at the samurai and blasts him with it. Within seconds, the samurai is engulfed in burning yellow light as he begins to fold in on himself like a cube of light, minimizing in size until he ends up as a little speck of ash on the passenger seat. Zaidi wipes the speck of ash off of the seat and grabs the samurai's helmet off of the floor and tosses it on the seat by the sword. Then he shapeshifts into the samurai, a general in Bloodvein's army. General Ma Jing is an intense warrior with superior sword skill and is a strategic commander. Zaidi inherits the psyche of those he copies, perfectly identical to every sense, retaining surface information and mannerisms. Ma Jing's last training session was so intense that Zaidi gains insight on Ma Jing's training regimen. The camera cuts to the driver's mirror as Majin Zaidi's eyes stare into them. He hits the gas on the Jeep and detours. Out of confusion, the other Jeeps follow and fall behind as Zaidi speeds off into the distance until he finally reaches the bridge and drives the truck off of the bridge into the watery abyss. The camera cuts to the second Jeep, pulling up a few yards away from Majin Zaidi, posing as if he is hurt. The third Jeep is off in the distance, still catching up. 4 agents hop out, 2 rush towards the bridge to tend to the other vehicle to see if there are survivors, and the other 2 head over to their injured general. The 2 rush over to Majin Zaidi, playing dead on his back. As they crouch to check over him, Majin Zaidi swiftly taps a Bluetooth-sized gadget on his ear, releasing 2 needle-pin bolts into the agent's lower lip, pew, and sends another 2 bolts into the other agent's lower eyelid. Pew! The pins instantly disintegrate, leaving nothing but the effects of a virtually untraceable poison called Cuddly Carnivore that causes instant paralysis, followed by the devouring of your nervous system, slowly turning you into a vegetable and then eventually causing death. The antidote is nigh impossible to find, and it is so rare. Both agents remain stuck in place as their muscles lock up, and breathing becomes a task as they panic. Moments later, the other 2 run over to the site of the others tending to injured Majin Ra laying on his back. As they get closer, Majin Zaidi asks them to lean in closer, and they comply. Majin Zaidi shoots them with the same device. Pew! Pew! The 3rd vehicle pulls up and sees 4 agents standing quietly over Majin, who is seen injured and kneeling on one knee, breathing heavily. 2 agents rush out of the vehicle and rush over, asking what's happening. Majin Zaidi extends his arm out, requesting for assistance to getting up. They comply. One grabs him and lifts him up, but during that gesture, Majin Zaidi shoots him with the ear gun, paralyzing him and causing him and Zaidi to begin to rock and stumble as Zaidi purposely shifts all of his weight onto the paralyzed agent and yells for help from the other agent to hold up his other arm. The other agent complies and swings around to uplift his general. Majin Zaidi is brought to his feet and returns his thanks by shooting another round of pins into the agent's upper lip, except only one shoots out. Pew! The agent screams in agony and holds his eye while shouting profanity. What the fuck? What the? He begins to slow down as his muscle functions begin to dwindle. Meanwhile, Zaidi is investigating his weapon to see why only 1 pin escaped his chamber this time. The camera pans out and around the scene as you see Majin Zaidi standing amongst paralyzed agents, fidgeting with his earpiece, while one agent gallops with a numb leg and arm trying to escape. You see Majin Zaidi walk over to the pitiful agent going nowhere slowly, grabs him and drags him over to the railing of the bridge, bends to grab the agent's paralyzed leg, lifts that, and flips him over the railing into the river. The camera cuts to him dragging and tossing each fully paralyzed blood vein agent into the river the same exact way, one by one. He then hops into the Jeep 20 minutes later and heads to the auction site. The intercom in the Jeep comes on calling for the general. The voice informs General Majin that the auction location has been moved a mile northward at a different facility due to a delay in the shipment vehicle. Majin Zaidi immediately calls Goldbrand to inform him. Goldbrand has also received the same information courtesy of Anarchy 12 intercepting the signal. Goldbrand informs Zaidi that Ajin Ra and Omega Supreme are going to be the first there and will ambush them. Goldbrand then directs Zaidi to the new location to assist and reminds him that it's very important that he stays and plays the act of the general because they need him later. Scene 8. The new auction location. The camera shows a large abandoned facility. A truck approaches from one side. 3 buff and heavily armed men wielding high-powered weaponry get out of the vehicle. 2 more men emerge from the back of the vehicle armed and carrying suitcases. A flimsy black-haired male scientist can be seen in the passenger seat trying to make an outbound call to Porter to see what the holdup is, but he's unsuccessful as the reception is non-existent. Across from them, 4 white cars pull up, and out of each of them, 3 passengers step out of the car, all of them wearing tuxedos and appear to be elderly Caucasian men. In one vehicle, 2 individuals step out, much younger gentlemen, both also wearing tuxedos. They turn their heads in unison and reveal bizarre blank faces, no eyes, no face, no nose, with one black swirl spiraling on the surface of their blank face in a hypnotizing fashion. The men in tuxes walk over to meet Porter Van Lith's partners. One of the tuxed elders steps forward and suggests the auction begin immediately. The scientist gets out of the vehicle, looks around the perimeter and smirks at the single blood-veined jeep coming over the hill, pulling up by them. General Majing Zaidi steps out of the jeep with helmet on and blade on waist. The scientist looks perplexed. At a one-man purchasing party, he expected a whole group of bloodvein. He then inquires if the general will need assistance carrying his new purchased toys home, as he points at and offers his own men for the task. General Majing Zaidi approaches and shakes the hand of the dealer scientist and hand of the tuxed elder. They begin to head into the facility. Time goes by and Porter has yet to arrive with his shipment. Inside the facility, the tuxed elders begin to express their dissatisfaction with the way Porter's men is conducting business, and General Majing Zaidi adds to it to cause more tension. The scientist explains the wait will be well worth it, and that he will go and try to contact Porter once more by finding an area with better reception. They all looked at their phones and watches and did notice that there is no reception, so they allowed it. He exits the facility with 4 of his armed men and walked toward the truck outside. As the 5 of them reach the vehicle, Omega Supreme lands in the middle of the mall from the sky, catching them off guard, and in a few swift motions, Omega delivers a palm strike to the side of the armed man, sending air pressure into his ear, causing his eardrums to explode, knocking him out instantly. He then punches the other armed man in the head, releasing pressure out of his fists into his skull, causing the man's brain to explode. The scientist turns around, startled at the ambush, and begins to flee. The other 2 turn and raise their weapons at Omega. Omega summons an orb of water on one target, and then he causes the cigarette in the mouth of the other target to combust in his face. Omega then manipulates the flame, causing it to engulf his whole body. Omega kicks the knees in of the one target with the orb around his head, making him drown on the water while screaming. He then kicks the burning one square in the chest as oxygen feeds into the flames tenfold, disintegrating his body entirely. The camera cuts to the scientist darting around the driver's side of the truck, fidgeting with his keys. He runs dead smack into Ajin Ra like a brick wall, shattering his high-tech glasses on Ajin Ra's beard, and he hits the ground hard, screaming and holding his face as he agitates a shard of glass from the lenses lodged in his eyes. The scientist cowers away and scoots back away from Ajin Ra. Anarchy 12's golden tech band starts to chime on Ajin Ra's wrist, as Goldbrand's voice can be heard trying to contact Ajin. Goldbrand reminds Ajin not to kill the flimsy man while interrogating him. Ajin lifts the wrist and speaks into the gold band, ensuring the scientist's safety. Ajin Ra calmly requests that the scientist tell him everything about the weapons, the gamma mutations, and its relevance to the alleged crash of an unknown object. The camera cuts to the scientist's eyes. The scientist tells him everything. He speaks of an unidentified object appearing through a black hole and crashing into the coast of Haven City. Van Lith Sciences arrived on the crash site and secured a giant mass of ooze and took it to an ocean lab, coordinates 54.0.86.59.04. The ooze mass came from a radiated dimension, and Gamma emits from it constantly. We learned that the ooze is wrapped around something, so myself and Porter were tasked with removing the ooze and had taken note of the ooze's useful properties while doing so. But then, something went wrong, and the man and his nephew Porter left their family for dead. And in their escape, they took the ooze with them. They weaponized it and began to sell it all. Ajin-Ra asks what went wrong in the ocean lab, and the scientist begins to burst into tears and tells him that he doesn't know. Ajin-Ra kicks the man in the head, releasing jolts of stunning power, knocking him out cold. He then joins Omega Supreme as they make their way to the facility to take out the two purchasing parties. The camera cuts to Goldbrand watching the video feed of the site. It doesn't take long with his keen military awareness to notice the video feed has been looping for the past few moments. He runs up to the monitors to investigate. Suddenly, he hears his own voice informing Omega and Ajin-Ra that the dealer's shipment is arriving on the scene and to head to the roof. Omega Supreme extends his hand to Ajin and they head to the roof. Goldbrand realizes the operation has long since been sabotaged. He goes to speak into his gold band watch to reach Zaidi, but no success. All the power in the vehicle goes out, pitch black. He tries to exit the vehicle, but he's locked in. However, despite the outage, the vehicle starts up and begins moving. Porter Van Lith arrives with his shipment of weapons and his protectors. R-Type X steps off of the vehicle, followed by Mardid Z, then Porter and the old man. The driver grabs one of many crates and follows them into the building. We cut to Porter standing at a table full of odd-looking ooze weaponry. Beside him, the obscured wanderer R-Type X and the older man. Further up on higher ground, perched on a walkway, is Mardid Z, her face covered with her scarf, rifle drawn, on high alert. Both the Tuxedmen and Majin Zaidi stand in attendance. Porter introduces himself under a different name. He uses the alias Dr. O, and he begins to convince the crowd that these ooze weapons are modified alien technology and stolen from Van Lith Labs. The last of the kind. The last of their kind, he says. The Tuxedmen talk amongst themselves. The strange twins both appear to be gazing at R-Type X despite having no eyes. R-Type X senses their gaze, but has his eyes on Majin Zaidi, who is looking at everyone. Suddenly, sporadic applause emits from the shadows. Anarchy 12 comes walking in between the two parties and stands before Porter's auction table. Everyone tenses up with their hands on their weapons. Mardid Z places her sights on him. Majin Zaidi looks puzzled. Ajin-Ra and Omega are perplexed by Anarchy 12 blowing his cover and throwing himself into his enemies. Omega Supreme crashes through the window, followed by Ajin-Ra as they leap through. Anarchy instructs the criminals and purchasers to pay attention. Anarchy points at Omega mid-flight, causing his gold tech band's true function to activate, completely nullifying Omega's power. And then the same happens to Ajin-Ra. They both plummet 3 stories to the concrete floor. Zaidi steps back in shock. Anarchy 12 begins to announce his new toy that he has for sale. He speaks of incredible technology that nullifies the power gained from the gamma mutation. He then goes on about other various capabilities of the wrist tech. Omega and Ajin struggle to their feet, surrounded. Anarchy 12 explains that mutants without their powers are just as helpless and therefore aren't heroes. Intrigued by this, the Tuxed Elder asks for permission to test, and Anarchy obliges. The twins engage Omega and Ajin in hand-to-hand combat. After a few straight minutes of intense hand-to-hand combat, the twins overwhelm the already injured heroes, and defeated they fall unconscious. The Tuxed Elder instantly makes a spectacular offer, and then he and Anarchy look at General Majing for a counter. General Majing Zaidi hesitates before offering a counter just to play along. Another Tuxed Elder walks up to the leader and whispers into his ear. The leader then makes another offer meant to blow the general from Bloodvein out of the auction. Even Anarchy looks surprised, yet ultimately delighted by the offer. Porter shouts a number twice the amount of that for every wrist unit he has. Everyone looks at Porter randomly. Anarchy looks at the Tuxed Elder, who has an expression of defeat. Anarchy 12 begins to applaud and closes the deal on the highest bidder. To be continued.